All right, seniors, this is going to be a model tutorial for different kinds of strategies for leads or intros you're writing for your narrative essays, personal statements, college essays. Um, One of the most important, or probably the most important part of your essay is obviously the opener, for the clear reason that most readers, you, me, um, definitely the people reading your college essay, decide within the first couple paragraphs whether they're going to continue to read the essay or what they think of it. So another thing you probably call this is hooks. Hooks are important because nobody has time to read an entire essay before they figure out whether it's interesting. Most people decide right off the bat whether it's going to be something that grabs their attention. So what I've done, there's a couple different types of strategies for intros. I'm going to show you each kind, and I wrote a bunch of different intros for a theoretical essay that I could write, personal essay, narrative essay, about my two darling little cats. So all of these essays, the broad thing is I'm writing an essay about my cats. That's my kind of writing purpose. And these are different kinds of leads intros I might write for that essay. All right, start off with the narrative lead. So this is a lead that lures the reader in by just throwing them in media res, as we talked about this week, into a story, an interesting, action-filled or suspenseful or funny or whatever kind of story to get their attention. So here's my example. This is 911. What is your emergency? I'm shivering on the upper deck of my apartment building, peering into the darkness at the menacing figures on the roof of the apartment next door. It is 4 a.m. and I should be asleep. Tomorrow will be another grueling day of teaching English to bored high schoolers. I look back into my apartment and see my cat's 2 trays of food, filled in the hopes that it would tempt them to come back from wherever they are tonight and settle in, so I could settle down and stop worrying. I watch the family of menacing animals stalk back and forth across the roof in scurrying movements in and out of their holes. My cats could be in there. Sir, what is the emergency? Raccoons. All right. This next strategy is called quotation lead. We're probably well familiar with it from kind of speeches. It's a very common way to start. The key is not just to start with an interesting quote from a poem, book, movie, play, real person, but to use that quote to introduce the main ideas of the essay. So don't just do the thing where you go online, go on quote.com, find an inspirational quote, but then just leave it there and not do anything with it. The real key to a quotation lead is to kind of give your own spin on it so that it introduces all the things that you want to introduce, right? Here's mine. Lovers and scholars, both the passionate and the studious, grow equally fond of cats, their household pride. These opening lines of Charles Baudelaire's poem Cats echo in my head often when I think back on my life with my 2 cats, Finkius and Bruel. Sometimes I've been in love with a book, with an idea, with a person, or sometimes even with life itself, and I've shared this happy secret with my cats. At other times, I've had to work long, lonely hours at my desk or my laptop trying to put together an essay, a short story, or a lesson plan. My cats have kept my studies going with their reassuring presence, the 2 lions that make up my household pride. So what I did there, whether you think it's cheesy or not, is I took that kind of those 2 lines of that poem, and for each of those concepts, I kind of made it, expanded it into things I wanted to introduce about myself, right? So that's the main idea. Don't just quote, use the quote to set up what you want to say about yourself. All right, this next lead is called the mystery lead. This is where you keep the reader in suspense about the identity or the main subject of the essay and kind of surprise them with it at the end. This is just kind of a great, not easy, but kind of simple way to get the reader's attention. If they don't quite know upon first reading the paragraph what or who or exactly this thing is going to be about, or if they're surprised when they find out what it is about, that's always like a guaranteed way to get their attention. Here's my example. One brother is moody, mercurial, a brooder who stares out the window at the street outside for long periods of time and sighs to himself. The other loves to go out at night and explore the neighborhood, taking long, meandering walks. He is never shy about meeting new people, always greeting strangers loudly and assertively. Despite their differences, they are very close and have lived with each other their whole lives. So close, in fact, They go to sleep with one another, with one arm around the other, which would be too close for most people that didn't also happen to be house cats. For math and science people, or people that like data and facts, this next lead, statistical lead, where you lure the reader in with a lead paragraph that presents a kind of fascinating, alarming, little known, or kind of very meaningful statistic or like kind of data point, right? So you're establishing authority and scholarliness right off the bat, and using that again just to introduce the main ideas of the essay. So here's my example: 2.4 billion birds, 12.3 billion mammals. That, according to the New York Times article, "That Cuddly Kitty of Yours is Deadlier Than You Think," is how much destruction outdoor house cats wreak on the environment every year. After reading this, I could no longer view the occasional corpse that showed up on my doormat as a gross but insignificant annoyance. I started to multiply each decapitated chickadee or mutilated mole by the billions until I could imagine opening my door to a tsunami of feline destruction. This next one's called the descriptive lead. This is kind of like a word poem, a poem in paragraph form, right? The main object of this is to kind of splash images and imagery, painting vivid characters, animals, objects, or unusual settings to kind of really show off your skills as a word artist, right? To give a strong mixture of different images in the reader's mind. Here's mine: the terrifying hiss in the dark of some creature underfoot. The calming hum of waking up with your face. The calming hum of waking up with your face pressed against the side door of the family car. When cats make noises, I've been told they're imitating sounds that the species has learned throughout the ages to mimic. But how could evolution have fit so many different pitches, tones, and intensities into one furry little voice box? So you see, my main strategy there was to start with distinct sounds and distinct kind of sensations and feelings that those sounds have, right? You can do it with images, you can do it with smells, you can do it with any kind of strongly descriptive sensations. This is called the imagine lead. This is where you actually ask the reader to imagine a scenario in the second person. That's where you use the pronoun you instead of I, right? This obviously is a strong one because right off the bat, you are forcing through that you pronoun to get the reader to imagine themselves in a situation. So it's kind of how to throw your reader right into it where they're actually imagining what it is you want to tell them. You're right at the road stop in middle of nothing, Virginia. All around you are tired families and sleepy truckers, people who haven't eaten food that wasn't fast or vended for too long of a time. It's probably a familiar sight to you, nothing out of the ordinary, until you notice in the grass a man with leashes that appears to be collared to two small dogs that have lost their minds. Instead of pulling frantically at the leash to jerk their owner in the direction of a pea spot or spilled meal, these dogs are spreading their legs out across the ground like water gliders and making a strange, droning yowl. And that's when you realize that this man isn't walking dogs on a leash at all. He's trying to walk his cats. Next to last, question lead. All right, this is another one you probably are familiar with and heard before in speeches. You start off with a big, controversial, or kind of thought-provoking question that intrigues the reader by posing one or even a series, preferably a series, that really gets them thinking of kind of direct questions that you're putting to the reader. All right, and that gets them thinking already about the topics you want to discuss. Why are there cat people and dog people? What makes a person throw in their lot with one or the other creature? Are we genetically predisposed? Does it all depend on our earlier interactions with the two types of animals? Or does it not develop until we are fully grown and get to decide for the first time which type of animal we want to spend our adult lives with? All right, so that's all the essays that I would recommend using, right? Strategies. You thought mine were corny? That's fine. All you need to take away is the basic concept or idea or strategy and put it to your own use, right? So just because you did or did not like any of those paragraphs before, keep in mind the strategy because your use of it could look very, very different, all right? It could be better than mine. I just want to end with the direct lead, and this is not a lead I recommend.